Welcome to the Autism Infocast. I'm Peter Clark, founder and chairman of the Autism Info Center. Our podcasts delve into every part of autism and neurodiversity, and we want to help you spread understanding, respect, and kindness for those whose lives are affected. Whether you're autistic yourself, or whether you know or care for someone who's autistic, or maybe you just come into contact with autistic people in everyday life. Either way, please feel free to check out our hundreds of articles, videos, books, and training courses at autisminfocenter.org. And I'll leave you now in the capable hands of today's hosts, Jemima and Theo. Over to you.
Welcome to our podcast. Today we're cutting through the noise a bit. We want to deliver some really crucial insights and, practical strategies for a topic that's just so vital, that's understanding and supporting autistic learners in educational settings. Our mission really is to help autistic students not just kind of get by, but to actually thrive. So this podcast is for, anyone in education, parents, carers, or honestly, anyone curious about making spaces more inclusive.
And it's such a fascinating area, isn't it? Because there's just immense potential there. Autistic learners bring these really unique strengths. And our goal today, I think, is to shine a light on how we can create environments where those strengths, can really flourish, while also, of course, acknowledging and properly addressing the specific challenges they might face. It really is about building genuinely inclusive learning spaces for everyone.
Absolutely. Okay, right. Let's unpack this then. When we talk about an autistic student, a key concept you often hear is this spiky profile of abilities, which basically means they might be incredible in some areas. Way ahead sometimes. Exactly. But then face, pretty significant challenges in others. And recognizing both sides of that seems absolutely key for effective support. So when you think about those unique strengths, what sort of things jump out first?
For me, it's often that incredible deep focus. You see a child who's just hyper-focused on a special interest in this. Well, it's more than a hobby. It often develops into this really profound, almost expert-level knowledge. Just imagine the depth they can bring to a class project or even just, a discussion.
Yeah, that's true. How can teachers really tap into that, even if the project isn't directly about that interest?
That's a great question. It does challenge how we usually structure things, doesn't it? And we often overlook their logical thinking, their pattern recognition, which, makes them great at maths or coding.
Right.
But that same skill offers a really unique way to problem solve in, pretty much any subject.
Have you seen times where, their attention to detail, noticing things others miss, actually led to something cool in class?
Oh, absolutely. I remember one student who spotted this really subtle but totally crucial inconsistency in a historical text, something the teacher hadn't even noticed.
Whoa.
Yeah. And it opened up this whole new line of thinking for the whole class. It just shows how powerful that trait can be. And then you add in their strong sense of justice, their honesty. It brings this real integrity to their work, their interactions. It can genuinely lift the whole classroom dynamic.
Yeah.
These strengths are just so valuable, but often surprisingly overlooked.
That's such a good point about leveraging those strengths. Okay, so alongside these strengths, we have to understand the common challenges too. And this is where it gets really interesting, I think, because often these challenges seem to stem from this mismatch between the students' needs and the typical school environment.
You're absolutely right. It's so often an environmental mismatch. Take social interaction, for example. It's easy to say, social interaction is a challenge.
Right, but what does that actually mean?
Exactly. What does it look like for that student in, say, a noisy hallway or during break time? It's not just being shy. It's trying to navigate this chaotic, unstructured world full of rapid-fire, unspoken social rules. It can be incredibly confusing, overwhelming even.
Yeah, I can see that.
And sadly, it can also make them more vulnerable to bullying because those social communication differences can be misunderstood.
And beyond the social stuff, what about just communication in the classroom, hearing instructions and things?
Yeah, that's another big one.
Yeah.
Processing rapid verbal instructions can be a real hurdle. Imagine trying to follow, 5-step instruction when your brain just needs that extra moment to process each bit.
Okay.
Or trying to get sarcasm or figurative language when you tend to interpret things very literally.
Yep.
That's common.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then layering on to all that, you have sensory sensitivities. The classroom, which for most people is just, a room.
It can be a nightmare.
It can be a literal sensory minefield, Bright fluorescent lights, the buzz from the projector, background noise, visual clutter on the walls, maybe smells from the canteen.
Things you wouldn't even notice normally.
Exactly. For an autistic student, these aren't minor things. They can pile up and create really debilitating sensory overload, which then leads to anxiety, makes it almost impossible to concentrate.
So for someone listening who's new to this, maybe they think, okay, dim the lights, simple fix, but what's a more subtle trigger people might miss? Something seemingly small that can really throw off a student's day.
Well, often it's the cumulative effect. Lots of small things adding up. It might be the texture of the carpet under their feet constantly, or the almost invisible flicker of certain lights that most people don't perceive.
Right.
These aren't just distractions. They can cause this kind of constant low-level discomfort or even pain, leading to this state of chronic anxiety, this sensory overwhelm that just makes learning incredibly difficult. And then there's executive functioning.
Right. Executive functions, those mental skills, planning, organizing. Can you give us a more kind of everyday example of how that plays out?
Sure. Think of executive function like the air traffic controller for your brain. It helps you plan your homework, switch between tasks, remember to bring the right books, manage your time.
Okay.
For some autistic learners, that controller might just be easily overwhelmed, making things that seem simple to others feel incredibly complex and challenging.
Got it.
And finally, transitions and change. That's a big one, too. Unexpected changes to the timetable, even just moving between classrooms.
That can be really upsetting.
Highly distressing, yeah. Especially for students who rely heavily on routine and predictability to feel secure. So if you connect all this to the bigger picture, these challenges, if they're not addressed, well, they can seriously get in the way, not just of learning, but social developments, emotional well-being, too. And it's so important to understand these aren't bad behaviors. They're expressions of genuine need because the environment just isn't working for them.
Okay, so that actually leads to the good news, right? Supporting autistic learners isn't about trying to change them. It's about us changing the environment, adapting how we teach. So where's a good place to start? What's one of the most impactful things you've seen for making a classroom more inclusive?
I think a structured and predictable environment is often just foundational. Since routine is so key for many, giving that clear daily structure, it can massively reduce anxiety. Something as simple as a visual timetable on the board showing what's happening when, that can be incredibly powerful.
Okay, visual timetables. Makes sense.
And tied to that, just really clear and direct communication. Give instructions that are concise, literal. Avoid jargon. Maybe steer clear of sarcasm unless you know the student gets it.
Right.
And always try to back up verbal instructions with something written or visual. That helps so much if processing auditory information is slower.
That makes total sense. And you mentioned visual support there again. We hear a lot about using visual aids. Could you maybe explain what some of those are for listeners who aren't familiar?
Absolutely. Because many autistic people are really strong visual learners. So tools like diagrams, checklists, they're great. But there are also more specialized things like social stories or comic strip conversations.
Okay, what are those?
Well, a social story is like a short, personalized little story. It describes a social situation, like maybe joining a game at break time, and suggests appropriate ways to handle it. Helps navigate tricky social cues.
Oh, okay.
And comic strip conversations. They use simple drawings like stick figures and speech bubbles to map out a conversation. They show not just what people say, but also what they might be thinking or feeling. It makes those abstract social things much more concrete.
Wow, those sound really useful.
They can be incredibly helpful, yeah, for understanding complex ideas and social expectations.
Okay. And what about the sensory side? We talked about the challenges, but how do we turn that into a strategy? How do we support them?
It's really about trying to make the classroom a more sensory-friendly space. And that can mean simple things like dimming harsh lights if possible, reducing background noise where you can, maybe creating a designated quiet space or a calm corner in the room where a student can go to decompress if they feel overwhelmed.
Like a little sanctuary.
Exactly. And also allowing sensory tools, things like fidget toys or maybe ear defenders if noise is a major issue. Sometimes it's even just about giving permission for a student to stand up or move around quietly if sitting perfectly still is causing too much sensory distress.
Right. Being flexible.
Being flexible, yeah. These strategies, they're often not huge changes, but they can be incredibly effective in making the classroom feel more accessible and less overwhelming.
And the last strategy you mentioned earlier, fostering peer understanding, that feels huge, not just for the autistic student, but for everyone. How does educating all the kids about autism and neurodiversity actually, create that ripple effect you talked about?
It's transformative, honestly. When neurotypical students understand autism better, it's not just about being nice to the autistic student. It actually helps create a school community where empathy is like a core value, where differences are genuinely respected.
Yeah.
Everyone feels a greater sense of belonging. It challenges those biases people might have, promotes real acceptance, and it builds this foundation of compassion that really extends way beyond just that one classroom. It fosters a truly inclusive school culture.
That ripple effect idea is so powerful. Okay, so to make all these amazing strategies actually happen, collaboration seems absolutely essential. You mentioned a team approach is crucial. What's the most important partnership in making this work?
Well, it has to be stressed that effective support is always a partnership. You can't do it in isolation. And probably the most critical partnership is between the educators and the parents or carers.
Right.
Parents are the real experts on their own child. Their insights are just invaluable, not just about the challenges, but also about those unique strengths we talked about, their preferences, how they communicate best.
They know their kid.
Exactly. So you need that ongoing open communication between everyone, teachers, parents, and any specialists involved, like speech and language therapists or occupational therapists.
And thinking about more formal support structures, particularly, say, in England, there are legal frameworks too, right, to make sure students get the help they need.
That's right. Yeah, in England, for example, a student with significant needs might have what's called an Education, Health and Care Plan, or an EHCP.
Okay, an EHCP.
Yeah, and that's a legal document. It outlines the student's specific needs and details the support they must receive in school, and the school's Special Educational Needs Coordinator, the SENENCO.
The CENTO, right?
Their role is vital. They're usually the ones coordinating everything, making sure that plan is actually put into practice and all the pieces fit together.
So wrapping this up then, what does this all mean for you listening right now? Ultimately, I think creating an inclusive educational environment just means recognizing that, well, all students learn differently. It's not just about autism. And by making these kinds of thoughtful adjustments, fostering a culture of acceptance, we can remove barriers. We can create a setting where autistic students feel safe, feel understood, and feel genuinely ready to learn and thrive.
Absolutely. With the right support, and importantly, that focus on their unique strengths, every single autistic student can be empowered. They can achieve their full potential, academically and personally.
Yeah.
It's really about unlocking what's already there.
Mm-hmm. And as you think about all this, maybe consider this final thought. How might understanding these principles, these ways of supporting autistic learners, how might that actually benefit all the students in a classroom? Could it foster a more adaptable, more understanding, more compassionate learning environment for absolutely everyone? Thanks for listening to this Autism Infocast from the AutismInfoCenter.org.
Thank you, Jemima and Theo. I'm sure we've all learned something there today. Don't forget to visit AutismInfoCenter.org to hear our other episodes, browse our library of articles, see our inspiring range of books, watch our videos about autism and neurodiversity, and find out about training courses that can help you or your organization make the world a safer, happier, and more meaningful place for us all. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, please feel free to spread the word about Autism Info Center. A quick mention on your socials is always appreciated. Until next time, this is Peter Clark from AutismInfoCenter.org. Have a great day.